It's no secret that TV shows like Doctor Who chop and change a lot between the scripting phase and the end result. And Doctor Who is no exception to this rule. While some of these amendments are minor, like the companion standing a centimetre to the left, or there's 7 Daleks in the scene instead of 6, or David Tennant appears because he often does do that, some was so huge that they would have changed the course of the show. And so with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 10 Doctor Who deleted scenes that would have changed everything. Number 10. A load of pants in the Shakespeare Code. In this underrated Series 3 adventure involving Big Billy Shakespeare, witches and a missing play, a subtle piece of comedy plays out. Martha, who is head over heels for the Doctor, is left embarrassed when he obliviously offers to share a bed with her. It's cringy enough as it is, but unfortunately for poor Miss Jones, this scene was nearly a lot worse. The original version saw the 10th Doctor strip down to his undies. No, really. Before getting into bed. This makes the situation a million times more embarrassing for Martha, and for the audience watching at home. Thankfully, the scene was rewritten because the creators deemed it inappropriate. You don't say. 10 already gets a ton of flack for his treatment of Martha, so just imagine what the backlash would have been to him showing off his budgie smugglers right in front of her. Considering the more sensitive world we live in today, what might have seemed like harmless comedy in 2007 could have seriously come back to bite the show in the, well, you know where. You almost saw it. Number 9. Playing Capaldi off in the ZYGON inversion. Peter Capaldi is, not to mince words, a bloody good actor. Capable of comedy, drama, and everything in between, the Scot commands the screen in everything he does, and his time as the Doctor was no exception. Perhaps his finest piece of acting came in the Series 9 episode The ZYGON Inversion. During a tense standoff between Kate Stewart and a Zygon disguised as Clara, the 12th Doctor unleashes a tirade against them both, all about the dangers and futility of war. It's a moving, timeless speech, framing conflict as a pointless endeavour while promoting the positives of diplomacy. Capaldi delivers every line perfectly, balancing the character's rage with the guilt of the Doctor's past actions on the battlefield. But as good as the finished product is, more of this monologue exists. According to writer Peter Harness, the speech was scripted to be way longer than it actually was, with sections of it cut from the final episode. Capaldi himself read some of the dropped lines at a convention in New Zealand in 2015. You can have too much of a good thing though. The speech is perfect as it is, and an elongated version would have risked ruining one of the greatest moments in the show's history. Number 8. This is the BBC in The Keys of Marinus. First Doctor serial, The Keys of Marinus, isn't about our heroes being locked out of their houses, but rather a quest to restore a supercomputer. It also very nearly revealed a key part of the Doctor's origin story. In an early version of the story, the Doctor revealed why he and granddaughter Susan were on Earth during the events of An Unearthly Child, the very first Doctor Who serial, and why he was in a bit of a grump during that time. The TARDIS scanner was broken, typical, and it was only showing images in black and white. So who does the Doctor turn to in his time of need? Why, the British Broadcasting Corporation, of course. The Doctor was on Earth visiting the BBC, seeking help to fix the TARDIS scanner. He would, however, find them infernally secretive. This is all kinds of meta, especially when you take into account that the Keys of Marinus is in black and white, not colour. Revealing that the Doctor had visited the actual BBC would have been a bonkers idea, but this sequence was removed before filming. Probably for the best. Number 7. Wardrobe malfunction in Twice Upon a Time. Sticking with the First Doctor now and his reinvention at the hands of David Bradley. In the 2017 Christmas special Twice Upon a Time, the 12th Doctor meets his original self as played by Bradley. The two have a chinwag, rescue a soldier, and then go their separate ways to regenerate into a new form. Regeneration is the subject of this entry, as Twice Upon a Time almost answered a question about the process that had gone unanswered for decades. When the First Doctor regenerated into the Second Doctor in the 10th planet, he famously changed clothes too. This has been a question mark for all this time, but Twice Upon a Time almost explained it away. Writer Stephen Moffat confirmed this in an interview, but he never actually revealed what the answer was going to be, because the scene was cut. This could have potentially been a huge deal, revealing something about regeneration that we didn't know before, while also solving a decades-old plot hole. Of course, now that we've seen the 13th Doctor's regeneration also feature a clothes change, maybe some answers are imminent. Or maybe Neil Patrick Harris is just messing with us. Number 6. The voice of reason in The Bells of St. John. The Bells of St. John is the episode where the Doctor finally meets the proper version of Clara Oswald after running into 2 different incarnations of her. Jenna Coleman earning the triple paycheck there. What a boss! In the episode, the 11th Doctor meets Clara in modern-day London after she is given the TARDIS's phone number by a mysterious woman. That woman would turn out to be Missy, the latest incarnation of the Master who first appeared in the next series. However, a deleted moment almost gave her a bigger part to play in this episode, in which she is merely referred to as the woman in the shop. Towards the end of the story, the Doctor would have received another phone call. Rather than trying to sell him insurance, the voice on the other end would have instructed him to trust this new version of Clara and to take her with him. An alternate version of this scene would have had the voice telling the Doctor, "Run, you clever boy, and save her," echoing one of Clara's most iconic phrases. While Missy presumably wouldn't have been revealed here, incorporating her in such a direct way would have made a great tease for what was to come. Admittedly, this would have been totally unnecessary, which is likely why it was cut. Number 5. Liquid Courage in Father's Day. In Father's Day, Rose Tyler asks the 9th Doctor to take her back to the day of her father's death so she can be with him when he dies. Instead, she ends up saving him, creating a paradox with disastrous consequences. Later on, Rose's dad, Pete, does the right thing and jumps in front of the car that was meant to kill him in the first place. But flinging yourself in front of a moving vehicle isn't an easy task. As such, Pete very nearly had some extra help, as he was at one point going to be shown taking a swig of wine. However, a lot of kids watch Doctor Who, and drawing a link between consuming alcohol and bravery was not a message the BBC wanted to send its young audience. This moment would have also changed how we viewed Pete's sacrifice, one of the strongest emotional beats of this series. Consequently, the wine scene was cut, though if you look closely, Pete can actually be seen taking a swig of drink right before his final conversation with Rose, so fragments of this scene did actually survive. Number 4. More than meets the eye in Survival. Survival is perhaps the most ironically named Doctor Who serial of all time, as it was the final one to air during the show's original run. At one point in time, the serial was also set to drop this massive bombshell. Thank heavens it didn't, as fans would have been waiting almost 2 decades for a follow-up. The revelation in question would have come from the 7th Doctor while in conversation with the Master at the very end of the serial. After a battle on the planet of the Cheetah People, yep, that's a thing, both characters were originally supposed to transport back to Earth, where the Master would accuse the Doctor of not being a Time Lord anymore. Shockingly, the Doctor would have revealed that his nemesis was right. He would go on to say that he had evolved into something new and that he was now multi-talented. However, producer John Nathan Turner decided not to include these lines, feeling they were too explicit in how they hinted at a different past for the Doctor. It goes without saying that meddling with the Doctor's backstory would have huge ramifications for the show. That said, considering how little an impact the Timeless Child has had, maybe not. Number 3. Here comes the Bogeyman in Hyde. The episode, eventually called Hyde, went through a surprising number of changes before it hit the small screen. Written by Luther creator Neil Cross, Hyde was originally called Phantoms of the Hex, which is a much cooler name, but let's not dwell on that. Instead of the Crooked Man villain that ended up appearing in the actual broadcast, the episode almost contained a throwback to Gallifrey's distant past. Cross wanted the villain to be the Lost Lord, an ancient Time Lord locked in a prison called the Hex. The Lost Lord had been stuck there so long that he had become a myth, basically Gallifrey's very own bogeyman. So the Doctor would have been seriously spooked when he learned that he was real. In the end, the plot was drastically changed to feature the 2 crooked men searching for each other in a 1970s mansion. While the end result was fine, imagine how much more exciting Hyde would have been if it had introduced a brand new Time Lord. Even after all these years, there's still so much about Gallifrey we don't know, so getting little nuggets like this every so often would go a long way towards making the planet more interesting. Also, Lost Lord sounds like a punk band, and that is exactly the sort of energy Doctor Who needs. Number 2. BRIGA-DIRE consequences in Battlefield. Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, the Brigadier to his mates, was one of the most stable parts of Doctor Who's original run. Though he appeared in the Sarah Jane Adventures in 2008, his last proper appearance in Doctor Who was in the final season serial Battlefield, and this was very nearly his final appearance full stop. The original plan for this serial, as approved by Nicholas Courtney himself, would have seen the Brigadier sacrifice himself during a battle with the Destroyer of Worlds. He would have called in an airstrike against the creature, getting himself killed in the process. This would have changed so much about the show. Not only would we not have got the Briggs appearances in the Sarah Jane Adventures or potentially in the Big Finish audio dramas, but we would have had to accept that one of the most beloved characters in the entire series died a brutal death. Thankfully, the Brigadier's life was spared when the creators couldn't go through with it. Quite right too. Number 1. What's in the Pit, in the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit? Matt Jones's first and only Doctor Who credit is a highly underrated one, and first introduces us to recurring aliens, the Ood. Oh, and we also discover that the actual devil is real. But the Ood though! They're adorable! The action revolves around a planet orbiting a black hole and the dangers that lie beneath its surface. Trapped under the planet is a horrifying beast called the Beast. Jeez guys, try a bit harder next time, eh?
No. You don't get to name things. I'm the Doctor, I do the naming.
The Pit wasn't always going to be Satan's humble abode, however. In fact, at one point, the creative team had absolutely no idea what was going to be down there. Many ideas were pitched as to who or what would be dwelling in the cave. Intriguingly, Davros, the creator of the Daleks, was considered for a time, as was the Doctor's mortal enemy, the Master. As we now know, both of these iconic villains would appear in New Who over the next few years. So just imagine how different Doctor Who would have been if one of these iconic enemies was just stuck in a hole somewhere. Considering how integral the Master would become to RTD's first run, including him here would have changed the course of the 10th Doctor's tenure. It's a fascinating alternate timeline, that's for sure. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed anything, then do let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Who Culture video ever again. I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.